If you shoot full frame and you're looking for a natural focal length with some background separation and blur with good build, autofocus, and you'd like all of that for approximately $1,200 US less than the Sigma that I recently reviewed on this channel, well, this one might be worth considering. And I was really excited about this lens because I own the 24mm f1.8 version, and it's been a surprisingly good addition to my camera setup. I've used this on probably 20 of my most recent YouTube videos as my A-roll lens. So when 7 Artisans said that they had a 35mm f1.8, I was excited to have another, perhaps G-Master killer for sub $300 US. But as you'll see shortly, this is a lens that is great for photography, but perhaps not for video. Construction of this 35mm is nearly identical to the 24, although interestingly they went with a shinier finish on the 35, so not exactly a matching set. Build is all aluminum and glass, as such it's not super light. It comes in at 420 grams as per the prophecy. Starting at the rear, there is a metal mount, electronics, a USB-C port for firmware, and a rubber gasket around the mount, although I don't believe the rest of the lens is sealed according to the information that I read. There is an autofocus switch here, a focus hold button, which I have to say feels a bit on the cheap side, and an aperture ring. The aperture ring is declicked with no option for clicks, but there is a click into auto aperture. The aperture ring is smooth, good resistance, but there is some slight metal on metal scraping that will get picked up on camera. Manual focus ring is up here, and it's oddly quite stiff. It's smooth, but it requires twice the rotational force of the aperture ring, which is an interesting design. The 24mm is not like this. Around the front is a compact front element, logo, minimum focus of 0.4 meters, 62mm front filter thread, and the lens specs. Inside there are 11 elements in 8 groups and an 11-bladed diaphragm. Focus is handled by an STM or stepper autofocus motor. I brought this lens with me on a recent family trip to Florida, and I took a handful of photos with it. So let's take a look at these, all JPEGs, unedited, no color correction, straight out of my aging A7C. You get some really solid contrast levels with this lens wide open at f1.8. Sharpness in the center of the frame also is quite good. Look at all of the detail here. Indeed, for street portrait work, this 35mm is not a bad option. It has nice color rendering, the skin tones are good. Look at this shot. If you told someone that you shot this with a lens that cost $1,300, I think most people would say yes, that looks about right. This is an incredible performance for a sub $300 lens. I did a quick comparison to the new Sigma 35mm f1.2, and here's what that looks like when you shoot both lenses at f1.8. The Sigma is still sharper with more contrast, but the 7 Artisans puts on a pretty good performance. Here's a look at the bokeh. It's a little less circular, but the Sigma lens is stopped down. Wide open, the Sigma would be cat-eyeing like crazy. Taking a look at a flat wall, sharpness in the center of the frame is pretty solid on the 7 Artisans. You'll see the corners are quite dark due to vignetting, but the Sigma's corners are also very dark. There's not a huge difference in sharpness across the frame. The Sigma is definitely better, but I'd say that the 7 Artisans is giving you about 85% of the sharpness. The bokeh and background separation is excellent. In general, the bokeh is smooth without any issues. It does get more oval into the corners and edges, but it still looks good and not distracting. In terms of distortion, besides the vignetting that I already mentioned, you do get some interesting wavy looking lines, pin cushion at the edges, but a little bit of barrel in the middle of the frame, so it's not the easiest distortion to correct, but I will say that it is slight. Chromatic aberration appears to be well controlled and suppressed, but loca or color fringing on out-of-focus areas is an issue that is quite clearly seen. Flare control likewise isn't the best. There are some very large flare elements, greens and yellows, loss of contrast, so not the best results. So up until this point, you might be thinking, well, it sounds pretty good, and you are right. Optically, you are getting good performance here, some flaws, but overall not bad. But the biggest issue with this lens is autofocus. First off, the focus breathing is slight, but there is some weird movement here, some shifting of the image that I noticed, which again supports my opinion that it's not ideal for video work. But the real issue is the general lack of confidence that the autofocus system has. It's constantly working and shifting and trying to find focus, and the result is some pretty bad pulsing. I shot this talking head and I noticed it as soon as I went to edit. I immediately went back to check that I didn't shoot this video with a Lumix camera, but then I realized I don't own a Lumix camera, so it had to be the lens. I've tested this lens in various other videos and the results are the same. There is a pulsing effect that is apparent almost at all times. Now you might be thinking, well, that's because you are using the A7C, that junk is super old now. And you might be right. Perhaps this issue would be less of an issue if I had a newer camera body, but the A7C really is no slouch. And it's odd to me that the 24mm from the same series would have no problems, whereas the 35mm all of a sudden does. I'm really hoping that a firmware update resolves this. I think that it can be fixed, but I wouldn't buy this new lens with that hope in mind because the firmware may never come. Ultimately, if this is a lens that you plan on shooting a lot of video with, I would say it's not the best candidate. Even for photos, it's great, but I had significantly more misfocus shots with this lens than other comparable lenses. With a steady subject and steady hand, you can get some excellent results. I don't want to diminish the fact that optically it's quite good. I just wish that the autofocus performance was better. If they had figured this out before the release, this would have been the budget 35mm to get. It was so close to being exceptional for the money. For me, because I shoot a lot of video, I won't be adding this to my collection, but the 24mm f1.8 is and will be in my collection for the foreseeable future. I'll link both the 35 and the 24 down below. That way you guys can check on current pricing and see and decide for yourself if this is a worthy investment for your own setup. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.